Hi everyone. I hope your observations are going well. I really enjoyed your lesson plans, and I'm looking forward to this week's class recording because we will often run into situations like these micro teaching scenarios. I think it's great that we can get to practice the skill of dealing with situations like this. My macro teaching presentation is going to be around the language issue or punctuation issue, semicolons. So in this recording, I'm going to present my strategies of dealing with the semicolon mistakes when they show up in my class. So let's pretend we are in my language class. We're doing a writing practice on the topic of summification. So I walk around the classroom and I see one student has written down this. This summer, I went to Chicago, Illinois, East Lansing, Michigan, Colchester, Vermont, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Atlanta, Georgia. I stayed in Colchester the longest, however, I traveled the least when I was there. Since these two sentences contain the typical mistakes people make on semicolons, I'll make the decision of bringing them to the attention of the whole class. So I will project these two sentences onto the screen and ask the class to look at the sentences. After everybody start reading these two sentences, I would ask the class whether any of them can identify mistakes. If they think the grammar is okay, then I'll ask them pay attention to the punctuations, any mistakes in the punctuation, how this student used the punctuation. Well, if there are students who can point out the mistakes, explain the mistakes, and also explain the rules of using semicolons, then that's great. I'll ask the student to explain. Instead of me teaching, I'll ask the student to teach. But I will reinforce the rules of using semicolons by giving them some exercises at the end. But if I ask my students to identify the mistakes, they can't, or they can, they need to use semicolons over there, but they cannot articulate the rules of using semicolons, this is what I would do. So I will point out the mistakes and make the corrections accordingly. And at this point, I will introduce semicolons to them. And after that, giving them the correct version of these two sentences, and I'll ask them to see if they can come up with rules with more examples. So at this point, I will elicit the rules of using semicolons. After listing out the rules, again, I will reinforce the rules of using semicolons with exercises. So let me show this part, the teacher teaching part. So if nobody knows the answer, show this to the students on the screen. And for the first sentence, I will show them instead of using commas at these places, you need to use semicolons. And for the second sentence, I will show them before, however, you're supposed to use a semicolon instead of a comma over here. And I will ask students to see if they can articulate or summarize the rules, two different rules presented in these two sentences. After some discussion, I'll show them these rules. First, you need to use semicolon between items in a list or series. If any of the items contain commas, give them more examples such as Brian the officer, Mark the chef, Ollie my dog. So you need to use semicolons to list them out. The second rule is you can use a semicolon between two independent clauses that are connected by conjunctive adverbs or transitional phrases. Bring their attention back to the sentence the student wrote using however. before. However, you need to use semicolon and give them another sentence before. Moreover, you use semicolon. And the third rule is a semicolon is mostly commonly used to link two independent clauses that are closely related in thought when conjunctions are not used. Give them another example. I ordered a cheeseburger for lunch, semicolon. Life's too short for counting calories. But at the end, I will point out for rule number 2 and 3. Actually, in practice, most people would just use full stop rather than semicolon in these two cases. All right, after the rules, I'll give them the exercises. I'll give them 5 sentences without punctuation except for the full stop at the very end. So what they need to do is to add commas or semicolons where they're needed in each sentence. How I'm going to organize the exercise, this exercise activity depends on how much time I have. If I have a lot of time to spare in this class, then I probably would ask everyone to go through all 5 sentences and so that they can see all these situations. And then they can share their answers with each other, check, and share the answer to the whole class for me to check. If I don't have much time, usually what I do is I will divide the class into 2 groups. Group 1, they need to do 1 and 2. Group 2, do 3 and 4. Usually I will leave extra one, number 5 or 5 and 6, for the students who are fast in doing these exercises so that they don't get bored while waiting for other students to finish. And they can share answers to each other, teach the other group how they're going to add commas or semicolons. And this is how I'm going to deal with this situation. Let me know what you think, and I'm really excited to see your micro teaching. See you next time.